Today we began talking about what's called pivot tables and pivot charts, and we did some basic introduction or a briefing about what pivot tables and pivot charts are in details. So also, we gave a scenario or a use case, just a case study. Just imagine you're a business analyst standing in front of a huge spreadsheet containing thousands or millions of records. Now, this record can contain things like the customers, the dates, when you made your sales, the sales column, and maybe the region where you made those sales. So you find that reading row by row for going through the entire data can take hours or huge amount of time for you to do that. So it becomes more tedious and not time efficient. So advanced pivot charts and pivot tables, they come in place and act like what you can call quote unquote smart control center that summarizes and help you to visualize all the data with a short period of time. So also remember, this forms the basic for our dashboards that we talked about yesterday. I showed you. This forms the introduction for our dashboards. Then now on at pivot tables, we that's just an Excel tool. Okay, it's just found within the Excel, the menu tab, used to summarize, organize, analyze, and even explore large data sets without you changing or working, affecting the original data itself. On the other side, pivot chart is the corresponding now or the graphical version of the pivot tables. That helps you to convert, summarize the data into visual formats like line charts, bar graphs, pie charts, column charts, histogram. You can do that. You can do that via the pivot charts. Yeah. So today we want to do some examples on pivot tables and pivot chart. Now we want to start with the pivot table. Once now we understand that what a pivot chart and pivot table is, we want to understand how do you work with a pivot table or how do you set up a pivot table. That is, how do you do an initial setup of your pivot table. Now, okay, Madam Cynthia, can you hear me? Have you managed to set up your laptop together with the data sets, the Excel and the data sets that you have? Because I want us to do it, go the practical way. Yeah, we should do so. We should do so because if I start doing it myself, in the middle you get bored and like, what is he doing? You can't even follow up clearly. But it's good if you can do it together. Uh, for Madam Marion, she has told me, okay, okay. Now we use the sales. We want to use the sales export for 2019 to 2020. This one over here is for the deluxe sales export 2019 to 2020. So let me share my entire screen. Let me share my entire screen. Okay, I hope you're able to see my screen, Madam Cynthia, over there. Yeah, we have the notes in PDF that's shared in the WhatsApp, and then now we have the data sets via email. So we have two data sets in your email. You're going to use the sales export 2019 to 2020 CSV. So that's it. That's what we're going to use. Oh, the PDF is called it's called the week five. Week five Loom Analytica advanced pivot tables and pivot charts. Week five Loom Analytica advanced pivot tables and pivot charts. It's just in the WhatsApp. I think it's the last one of the latest messages that we share. You can even access it via your phone. Don't worry about that. Just access it via your phone. Yeah. Okay. I think we can proceed. Let, so with me here, I have my data in Excel. So for me, I'm going to work. I'm going to do what's called initial setup for my pivot table. So that's the first thing that you have to do. Initial pivot table setup. We want to access our pivot table. So how am I going to do that? So before dividing or diving into pivot, I mean advanced techniques like the pivot charts and the pivot tables properties. So you have to create what's called a foundational pivot table. That should be added to your data model. Ideally speaking, we want to first import our data and then we want to create a foundational pivot table that will be used for uh, the adding other features like the slicers, the timelines that we'll be talking about in just a few minutes. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? So the first thing you have to open your Excel, what I've done, and then you import that particular data. Okay, or you can just open that data directly without having to import it. Once that's done, we have to now launch our pivot table or the foundational pivot table. How are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? So in your Excel, you navigate to the insert. Okay, you move to the insert. Mine is there with me here. Then via the insert, you come and click on the first particular menu here, pivot tables. So you click on that. Then Excel will ask you, or it will select you the data that you want to work with. For me, we have a variety of options here. Like select a table or range which is already existing, or you can use an external data source. You can use an external data source. For me here, I'm not going to use an external data source because I have my Excel already loaded. So I'm not going to do any connection to other external data sources, like maybe from a database, from a website. I'm not going to do that. Then you are going to choose where you want your pivot table to be pasted or placed. So you have two options: either new worksheet, okay, a new one, or in the existing worksheet. But when it's in the existing worksheet, you have to select which particular place or location you want to place it. Maybe from cell L3. That's where you have your pivot tables. Now, for me, I'm going to use a new worksheet because if I put it here, it's going to make my workspace dirty or crowded. So I'm going to use a new sheet. Okay. Then, if you haven't done it before, you have to click on add this data into a data model. Is it? I'm recording a bit. Don't worry about that. Yeah. I hope you're able to follow that up to this point. Okay. We don't have. We want to use the existing one. Okay. We already have that. Do you know the meaning of external? Uh, assume yeah. Assume you're working with where you're getting your results from a database source, maybe from access database, but in your machine. So you have to create a connection and then you link that. But for us, we already have our data downloaded in our machine, so we're just going to use the existing one, which you have just imported into our Excel, like what I'm having over here. Is that okay? Now, uh, all right. So after that, I'm going to click on OK. Okay, so if I click on this, I'm going to have my pivot table on a new sheet. And you might be thinking pivot table as something very huge. No, this now the pivot table. This is an example of a pivot table. This is a pivot table. Here, all of it. I will see that, Madam Cynthia. That's the pivot table. And then in the corresponding, on my right, you have what's called a pivot table field. So the fields itself, when I click on the fields contains all the columns that I had in my data. You see that? Plus, if you click on the select for each, you will see the categories that you have there. For example, in my category here, I'm having something like accessories, appliances, beauty, books, clothing, electronics, games, etc. Okay, when I'm to device type, I'm able to see the unique devices that I'm having with my store. So if I click on that drop down menu, you can see I'm having mobile, PC, and tablet. I'm having three of them: mobile devices, personal computers, and tablets. So on my right, in the pivot table window here, on my right, I'm having the pivot table fields. Okay, and then I'm having some four boxes. We are going to see how to work with this one in just a few minutes. So I'm having all my columns here, all the fields. We got what you call the fields, entries, or variables, can name it. And then right over here, I'm having my pivot table. So this pivot table is very powerful. To be able, you can do calculations with it, either statistical calculation you'll be able to do using the pivot tables, and you are also able to generate pivot charts just using pivot tables. So I want to do a bunch of things here. I want to do a bunch of things and compare whatever things I'm having. Now, after that, let me do something here. I want to set up my baseline structure. I want to also set up my baseline structure. What I'm going to work with for now. So, baseline structure, you can select any variables. What I'm going to say, I'm going to define my rows, okay? And then I'm going to define my columns. Then I'm going to define the values to include. I have a blank space here. Here, I'm going to define what I want to work with first. I want to define what should appear in my rows. okay, from this particular fields. Then I want to define what should appear in my columns, what should my column indicate, and then I'm going to match against which values should be there, which values should be there. So, for example, let me say that in my rows here, I'm going to drag and drop by this, accept drag and dropping. So, in my rows, let me set my column. For columns, I should having device types in my column. Are you seeing what I'm doing? Come and drag it and place it there. Where we see that, yes, device types. And that's what you see in our columns. Mobile, PC, tablets, plus the grand total will be computed automatically. You don't have to worry about that. It will be computed automatically. Is that okay? Then let me take my categories to be in my rows. Let's see my rows to have some categories. Can drag and drop that here. I think that magic. So in my rows, I'm having accessories, appliances as my category, beauty, books, clothing, electronics, games, other smartphones, all that. Okay. In categories, you have to identify some few unique variables, because if you go with date, that's too much. Very, you'll have a long list. But for my categories, like I'm having just a bunch of them, maybe 13 or 14. Yeah. Then with my columns, I'm having three of them. I'm having, let me drag that. I'm having mobiles, personal computers together, tablets. So I want to compute these particular values, but what I'm going to use for my rows, what was their order, what was their order value. So I'm going to come to my column, then I'm going to click on order. On my values, I'm going to click on order value. So let me click drag that and place here. That's a simple summary. What you have, whatever thing you have there. Based on my particular product, based on my what I desire it to be. For me, I'm investigating the categories of devices based on the device types, and then we'll get the sum of all the values in each of them. Let me break this down. For example, I'm having my mobile phones, okay. Then I'm going to see for my order values, which categories does they fall to? My first one, mobile phones, fall under accessories. Okay, the values that falls under accessories for mobile phone is this particular value. This is 80 what? Come on, 837,556.61 euros. Okay, so the value for all accessories in summation for all accessories that falls under mobile I mean the accessories category that fall under mobile devices as a device is 837,556.61 euros. What about those mobile phones that falls under appliances that were placed under appliances? Let me take you back here, by the way. This is my original data. So I have my devices, yeah, device type, mobile phone. Then I'm going to have my category. So they were either categorized under, okay, books, either for games, okay, clothing, all that. Maybe they are being used for this particular categories for storing books, for games, for recording clothing, for beauty, for all that, or accessories and appliances. So that's whatever category that I'm having. Then with that, I'm having the device steps. Only three of them: mobile phones, personal computers, and tablets. Okay, the three of them. So I'm able to see that against their values based on the order value in euros. Ideally speaking, what I'm going to do, I'm going to sum. Let me use the first example for accessories. I'm going to sum where I'm having mobile devices and you have it as an accessory. So let me do this. That's not it. Accessory. Okay. Uh, it's my next accessory. Let me check. Let me check. Let me just filter this by accessories alone. Accessories. Okay. Then let me do that by device type. Let me use only mobile phones. So this is what I have. Then I'm going to do that based on order or euros. This is not unique. This is not unique. So you only have that in total. So this what I'm having here, what I'm able to visualize. Mobile phones that belongs to accessories categories, but I'm going to take the summation of their order value in euros. So instead of me doing all those processes that I've already done here, I'm just going to use a simple, I'm going to use my pivot table to come up with that particular summary. Is now that clear to you, Madam Cynthia? Okay. So that's how you can, maybe let me see, let me check on something now. Let me check instead of device type. Oh, let me on my rows, let me now delete this. Let me remove this field, and then I'm going to see what was there for every sales manager. Yeah. Those are what I had for every sales manager. I have Celine, Charlene, Denise, Emalia, Glenn, all that up to Ricard. So I'm able to see the grand total against the device type for each particular, each and every uh, what sales manager. So I'm able to see that with just an S. So I'm able to do my analysis. Like for example, I want to use one particular example. We want to do our statistical analysis, and then I'm going to do a visualization. Just over here, by an S, I'm able to see the grand total. I'm able to see that. I can do more advanced functions like maybe getting the average, the sum, the count. I want to see that in a few minutes. So by having this, I'm able to do what? To create or insert a pivot chart. Yeah. So that's how you use the pivot table field against uh, the pivot table itself. So let's move on onto something. I want us to use know how do you add slicers and timelines with pivot tables. Okay, so the first thing that you have to know. We want to talk about how do you add slicers and timelines with pivot tables. Yesterday I showed you the slicers versus the timelines, but I can show you that as well right over here. Uh-huh. Let me come to my browser. Don't know what is in my history. Come on, let me see. I saw there. So let me do what's called slicers. Slicers help you in what's known as filtering. So you are able to filter your data using slicers. Like in this particular image over here, let me open a new tab. So we want to see that by example, there's blurry. I want to see how do you add a slicer to help you in filtering your data. Things now clear. Yeah. So by you having slicers, you are able to do what's called delta. You can able to filter your data based on whatever thing that you want, and that forms the foundation of dashboard interactions. You want to come up with a dashboard and you want to know how do you interact with that particular dashboard. One of the ways is using what's called slicers and timeline. So let me give you a narration. Let me give you a scenario. So let me return back my what was that in my. So you can able to come up with the maybe for categories. You can able to come up with the more complicated tables that you want. Maybe I'm able to do that via I'm having my sales manager. I'm going to see the particular categories versus the grand total. So I'm able to combine a variety of options. Time won't allow us to test all these particular examples, but just get to know that you can categorize various rows, not only one but a number of them, just right over there. Like what you can see here, I'm having various sales manager. Again, is the categories, the device categories. Okay, then we'll see my devices types over there. Again, is the grand total. So these are some things that you can do to keep it simple. For example, let me remove my device manager. Or let me keep it simple by having categories against the device types versus the sum of their values. I can even replace some of the values with cost, anything that you want. So, okay, assume I want to give a business problem. Then we want to see how do you do that using pivot table. That's going to be our example. And we want to learn how do you add slicers for your chart. So, assume the regional sales director, your regional sales director needs to analyze sales. Okay, your regional sales director, which you're working for, needs to analyze sales performance across product categories. So the main aim is they want to analyze every sales performance against product categories, like what I'm having here: accessories, appliances, beauty, books, up to smartphones. Sounds he's interested in analyzing the sales performance for all these particular categories. Then we find that, however, having static reports are very rigid. Like I've done my report today for this particular device. What if tomorrow I add values? That will be very rigid. It won't accommodate the varying changing data because next month, the other month, that will be coming in for various categories. So I have to do that, keep that in track. So having it done in only in one time will make it so rigid. So my director wants to filter that data instantly by country. Remember the countries. Okay, let me clear this particular filter. I show you. You had the countries there. The next thing we want to do is categories. Let me return that. Yeah, I think that's okay. That's okay. So we had the country column. So my sales director wants to filter this particular data for categories via countries. Oh my. Maybe to decide is interested. What about Sweden? What about Finland? What has happened to our sales categories? Okay. How has books performed in Sweden? How has books performed in Finland? He's able to filter that without manually analyzing or doing the analysis in once. So this will make me flexible. This will make the analysis flexible and not so rigid. So it's interested to filter data instantly by country and the device types. Which sales perform well in Sweden? Is it mobile phones? Is it tablets? And by what value? And you want to also drill it down dynamically into specific quarters or months. Maybe you can see what about the month January? How has mobile phones performed under books category? Or how has mobile phone performs under accessories category? So it's able to drill that down or to see that. Maybe right now it's more conceptualized, but you'll see that in the practical when we we dive into it. So you might be checking now, but what about month of February? What happened to mobile phones? What happened to tablets? What happened to PC? Maybe for a number of categories. So let me take you through a step-by-step implementation. How do you add slicers for that matter? So for today, we want to talk about how do you add slicers. So for you to add slicers, let me take you back to my pivot table. This is what I have. Now, let me come up with a new one. Insert pivot tables on a new sheet. Yeah, so this is an example that I might work on. I want to do something new. I want to check the box for countries against device types. Countries against the device types. So what am I going to do? I'm going to click anywhere in my pivot table here. Then I'm going to select countries against the device types. Without doing that, we want to start by inserting that particular slicer. So for you to insert a slicer, we're going to select or remember slicer used for filtering. So we have to access all our records or all our columns that we want to apply our filter to. So to do that, just navigate anywhere in your pivot table, then move to insert, then come to what's called analyze. If you want to click this at the pivot table, you won't see that particular analyze section. That analyze menu won't appear over here up to until you do what you click on inside your pivot uh, table. Have you able to notice that, Madam Cynthia? When I click, when I don't click inside the pivot table, you have to click. Okay, you have to click anywhere inside your pivot table for you to have the analyze menu shown. If I click outside here, it won't appear. Yeah. So, all right. So inside here, you come to analyze. Then you're going to insert what's called slicer. I will see that, Madam Cynthia, right over here. How do you insert slicers versus a timeline? So let me click on that. Then here's what you have. Now things are getting more interesting. So with my slicer, I'm able to identify all the columns in my data, all the columns in my data, in a very unique columns in my data. For my data, I'm having countries, I'm having order value, I'm having cost, I'm having date, categories, customer names, sales manager, user, sales representative, device types, order ID. So for me today, I'm interested with analyzing because okay, back to our sales director is interested in analyzing country against the device type. So I'm going to select only those country and then device type. Okay, you can select anything you're interested in. For me, I want to view, I want to add slicers to view device type sold per country. Is that clear to you, Madam Cynthia? Yes, you can do that. So yeah, you can do that. You can do that as well. Maybe sales representative again is the device types. Okay. Yeah. So let's do that. Let's use this particular simple example to be direct because that was our use case. Then we'll try other options. So after that is done, device types again is country. Let me click on OK. Then boom, I'm having my slicer over here. I'm having my slicers over here. So this is what we call slicers in Excel or in pivot tables. So once you have your slicers, you are able to do a number of things. First, you have to create a connection. Okay, you have to create a connection. So I'm going to create my connection to my data here. They have to communicate. That's the thing. You have to create that connection. So how are you going to go about that? You right click, or you can click anywhere on top. Right click, then you're going to come here to what's called uh, report connections. You come and do that. Then you have to select your pivot table that you're working with. For me, I'm working with pivot table 2. You remember I had the first one, but now I'm working with pivot table 2. That's only what I want to select over here. So you have to check that box for pivot table 2 only. Again, I'm going to create a connection for my device type slicer in the same manner. Report connection to pivot table 2. Then you click on OK. So after doing that, you can also create your timeline. So let me organize my things very smoothly. So let me come insert what's called timelines in a similar way. In a similar way. So I'm going to click inside my pivot table, come to analyze, insert timeline. So a timeline is just like a slicer, but only talk about dates. If you have date column in your data or something that is of date or time, okay, date or time is the only column that will be selected. You see, with me here, I'm only having the date. Why? Because in my data here, I'm having a date column because I want to see the timelines. Is that okay, Madam Cynthia? All right. Once you're able to follow that, everything that is in the PDF, you'll do that at your free time if you are not able to follow along together. So let me insert my timelines. Yeah, select date, then you click on OK. So this now something beautiful because I'm having all my date for months because you're analyzing data for 2019 and 2020. So I'm having all months: January, August, September, October, okay, for the first year. Then if you move to the next year, 20 to 2019, you are also going to see that. Yeah. So let me go back. Now you have 2019, the months are already there. Then up to January 2020, there's a date here. Oh, let me expand it for you to see. Uh, so I'm having the months January 2019 up to December 2020. Hope that's this. So using timeline, I'm able to filter. Maybe I want to see only months, or I want to see quarters, or I want to see days. So this will give a longer one, of course, a very long list, a very long list. Maybe 365 plus 365 days, a long list because each and every day for 2 years. So I just imagine that number. So let me make it simple by talking about. You can also add quarters. You have 4 quarters in a year: first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Again, for 2020, we also have 4 quarters. So let me keep it simple by talking about only months. I think it's easier to work with months. Of course, you can try other options. So the same thing. I want to create a connection. I'm going to report a connection. You have to ensure that you want to report that particular connection. So that's it. That's it. So just from me, I'm able to do a bunch of options. I think you're able to note something. So take keynote. Take keynote. I hope you're together, Madam Cynthia. I don't know whether Marion is back. Anyway, okay. Don't worry about that. Everything is recorded. I'll share the link. You follow up with when you aren't able to join earlier on. So, by whatever celestial sometimes I'm having, I'm able to do a bunch of options. So I can see, were there any devices? What was the device type for Australia? Okay, this is the thing. Did I have mobile device for Australia? When I click on that, I don't have. Why? Because only PC is in blue. The other one is in light blue, faded blue. It means Australia we never had what? Mobile and tablets. I would say that, Madam Cynthia. If I click on Belgium, I'm having both. When I click on Bulgaria, I'm having all of them. Denmark, I'm having that. France, I'm having that. So let me clear that. For you to clear this, that particular, okay, if you do one, there's an X in red. So for you to clear your filter, to restart it from zero, you just do that. Everything's clear. So let me select a random country again, Spain. So Spain had all device. What about in the year 2020, month of April? Which devices were there? So let me select April here. All devices were there. What about May? What about June? Okay. For this, it seems everything was there. Let me click on Luxembourg. Let me clear everything. Clear everything. Let me click on Luxembourg. You have all devices for the month. Okay. Let me check for quarter. Quarters. That was there. It was there. Everything was there. I want us to come up with a. Okay, that's so huge. Let me go back to months. Clear that. Clear that. Let me select another country. Which one? Bulgaria. In the month of. We're only going to stop up to until we find that particular. Uh, Now let me click on dates. On days. Clear that. Clear that. So let me click Australia. PC on 29th January. It was there. Okay. It was there. It was there. It was there. It was there. We are only going to stop until we miss that particular PC. Okay. It seems Australia had all the devices. So let me click another country, Belgium. Let me fill it by months. August, February, March. Let me see other options. Seems everything was there for Belgium. For Bulgaria. So for Bulgaria, January we never had. Uh, Let me click this, clear this. Okay, for January, we never had mobile phones versus the tablets. Okay, let's be creative enough to demonstrate this. So let me go back to my yeah. So let me go back to my data. I want to show you something. Let me just go direct. In my data for the month, let me use the fourth one, Portugal. For this particular date, Okay, 11th July 2019, we never had mobile device. We only had PC. We only had PC for Portugal. So let's mark the date. Uh, 11th July 2019, we never had PC. So let's see that whether we'll be having. We never had a mobile device. We only had PC. So let's see if only PC was there for that date. I want to show you something. Portugal, Portugal, Portugal is already selected. We all had that. Uh, for July 7th. Okay, 2019. Were we having mobile devices? Oh, we never had that. Yeah, we never had that. So that's an example of filter that you can do, you can use. For this month, July, mobile device, we never had country or the mobile device. You can see everything is selected in is grayed out. Have you seen that, Madam Cynthia? That's an example. What about PC? PC only at Portugal there. What about tablets? You can filter either sides because we reckon, yeah. So let me check for mobile devices. Finland, German, Ireland. Which country is not having mobile devices? Australia and Denmark. We don't have mobile devices. Okay, what about PC? It's like all countries had PC. I hope you see that, Madam Cynthia. Right. So that's how you can add slicers. By the way, we just leverage the colors. We want to do this such a way that we want to have mathematical computations, we want to have analysis versus the visualizations. Just hold on a little bit. So that's how you add slicers and timelines. So slicers and timelines help you to do what's called filtering. And they form the basic way to interact with the dashboard. Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. Hello, Madam Marion. Are you able to talk now? Okay, that's great. I hope you're able to follow. You're able to follow that. Wewe ulianzia wapi? Hmm. Okay. Uh, okay. There's no. Don't worry. Don't worry. This it's okay, madam. Madam. So because times has already moved. Now just know how to insert slicer for now. Okay. Then for tomorrow we're going to see how to even create pivot charts and do what's called dynamic reporting. Dynamic reporting, like what you saw earlier on in that particular thing I googled somewhere back. That animated stuff. You remember yesterday. So that's how you can come to those particular dynamic reports by including pivot chart together with just analysis, either summation, averaged, median, minimum. You're able to see that. Yeah. So that's it for today, team. Just know to insert slicers. It is very easy. By the way, it just take you less than 2 minutes or less than some few seconds. You'll be able to do that. So even if I go back to my table, let me analyze insert slicer. I'm able to insert slicers like for countries against the cells represented. Then click on OK. So I'm having slicers right over here where I'm able to now do what's called a connection for this pivot table 1. I want to create another connection for pivot table 1. So I'm able to see what's happening there. I hope you're able to see that, team. Even what's happening in my data, in my left. I will see that, Madam Marian. This is just by an overview. This is just an overview. Now I'm able to do what some filtering based on whatever thing I have. Maybe Australia, country and sales representative. Yeah, you can just pick any. So let's say Australia, and for who? You only had Bank QMB. The names is very difficult. Bank QMB. So you find that for Australia you only had electronics and games. For PC only, you never had mobile devices. So you can see that. If I clear the filter, everything was there: mobile devices, PC, and tablets. Now, what's remaining is just own creativity. You must not do what I'm doing. You can just come up with your own creativity based on your business problem or whatever thing that you want to do. Is that okay, Madam Mariam? Yeah. So, in summary, you have learned how to insert slicers. So tomorrow we're going to see how do you create pivot charts and dynamic reports from this particular slicers.